My question to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, as an African American, as a black man, when can I protest? When can I speak out? When can I show frustration and anger? When I march, you condemn me. When I talk on the internet, you condemn me. When I say it on television, you condemn me. Anywhere in the public square where black people talk about this, it just basically say a simple affirmation that black lives matter, that our lives have value. We are constantly ridiculed and criticized. When is the appropriate time? I would think the fact that it was an African American named Crispus Attucks who was the first sacrifice in what was the start of the Revolutionary War, that in every single conflict this country has ever had, black people have fought in it and fought with honor and valor, only to come home to discrimination and subjugation and oppression. I would think if anyone had the right to speak out against the injustices of America, it is black folks, because they have shed blood, sweat, tears, and toil for it. I come from a people who have died for the simple right to vote, for the simple right to walk down the street, for the simple right to use the same bathroom as their white counterparts. I have seen young men such as Damon Grimes in my city who was killed for riding an ATV. This was a child with a 4.0 GPA. Everything he was, everything he was going to be, everyone he was going to touch, every life that he was going to have impact for was snuffed out. And for what? A civil infraction? Is that what little my life has to you as a black person? Don't I have value? Don't I have meaning? Don't you look at me and see a man that bleeds the same blood that you do? And you treat my children that way? You killed him. You murdered him. And there was no consequence. There was no trial. Nobody was brought to justice for that. I went to that funeral. I saw that mother crying. I held her in my arms. We are angry. We are incensed. These are our babies. These are our children. A job as a man, as a parent, is to make sure that your child makes it and becomes what he wants to be. That's why we're protesting. That's why we're fighting, because we believe in the American spirit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We're not protesting the flag. We thank God for the flag. Black folks have sacrificed for the flag. Hell, if it wasn't for black slavery, there wouldn't be a flag. You used us to build this country, and we didn't get any reparations for that. I'm still waiting for my 40 acres and a mule. And I know black folks who are upset about that, and they should be. We're not protesting the flag. We are using this opportunity because we know what the flag represents, which is freedom of speech. We know what the flag represents because we have sacrificed the most for America to be what it is, because it was built on our backs. So when we do this and when we're out here in these streets and we talk about Black Lives Matter, it's not to say that other lives don't. It's just so that you see us and you understand that we have value in all the things that we have accomplished as black people. The clock, the almanac, the baby buggy, the carbon filament in the light bulb, the telephone, the shoe lasting machine. All these things were built by black folks. The internet with Phil Emanuele. All the things that we've done, all the things that we contributed, all the things that we sacrificed for as patriots, as fellow Americans and brothers in arms. All we're saying is just look at us. Love us the same way that we love you and love this country. That's all we're saying. We just want value. We just want to be heard. We just want our children to be able to walk up and down the street and not have to worry about them being killed and them being shot.
All right, and we're hot. Thank you so much for tuning in to Feedback, a positive image production by Hood Research. My name is Theo Broden, co-founder of Hood Research. And I want to thank all of you who helped to sponsor this program. And for those of you who are considering sponsoring it, please make your check or money order out to Hood Research. Or if you prefer, you can make it out to Watkins Broadcasting Company. We have no objection to that, but we do ask that you mail it to Hood Research at P.O. Box 4416, Detroit, Michigan 48204. Again, that's P.O. Box 4416, Detroit, Michigan 48204. There have been so many things going on this past weekend. We hope for those of you who are tuned in, if you had not had an opportunity to hear the speech given by Senator Coleman Young II before the Senate in Lansing, that you had an opportunity to hear the whole speech this morning. I do have to say that we ask you all to pray for Errol Griffins. And I want you to know now that I have with me this morning, in the person of Marilyn Jordan of Black Women, Inc., and Bill Proctor, the former reporter for Channel 7, News WXYZ.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you. We have a very serious subject that they will present to you this morning, and we need to have you call your friends, family, etc., and have them tune in, because it's something that we all need to know about, hear about, and participate in. Which one of you want to start first?
Well, we have Bill. Bill, he's the guest. I feel like I'm family here, so we're going to let Bill start off. I think everyone's pretty familiar with me.
Okay. Okay.
Well,
Bill
thank
Proctor.
you, ladies. I mean, it's not often that the ladies allow me to go first.
Men first. Okay.
But
This is Men First Day. Okay.
That's so very nice of you. But the issue is very serious, and it does in fact affect our community more than other communities. But it's the issue of wrongful conviction in America, and wrongful conviction in Wayne County is very, very close to home. We have seen in recent weeks and months at least a half dozen black men walk out of the Michigan prison system after years, if not decades, in prison for crimes it was eventually demonstrated that they did not commit. And that word is very painful to have to use when you're looking for justice, that eventually you get to what is right. Eventually you find yourself truly on the side of justice and truth. What has happened in too many cases is that crimes occur, and the crimes are real, and there are real victims, some of them deceased because of the illegal and horrific actions of others. Unfortunately, when the police find themselves faced with solving that crime, sometimes they move in the wrong direction. Sometimes they find themselves on a path where they think they are trying to assemble elements of truth, and they do not. And so by the time they make a presentation to a prosecutor, essentially trying to get charges on a certain person or persons, what they do is make the wrong choice. So I'm not going to say that it's intentional, although the intentional misdeeds, even criminal actions of police, have been demonstrated in some cases. In a lot of cases, it's just a matter of being steered in the wrong direction. So these cases end up in the hands of prosecutors who structure charges, who take people to trial, and they argue and sometimes prove to a jury or a judge that that person is in fact guilty. Well, in too many cases with these wrongful convictions, the accurate facts, the real truth, never gets to the jury, never gets to the courtroom, is sometimes stopped at the door by the rules and procedures of the justice system. Sometimes it's a matter of people who unfortunately are criminals themselves providing statements and providing what they feel is evidence of a scenario that points to the wrong person as being responsible. It is more complicated than what I'm laying out here. But just please understand that the issue of wrongful conviction is real. And when people over so many years in this country have just kind of written off claims of actual innocence as being, well, everybody in prison says that they're innocent, that's absolutely not true. Most people who are in prison will tell you, yeah, I did that, but gee, I want to get out of here because, all right, well, no. What this is.
I think, Bill, we're looking at what, 1 out of 4 that could possibly be wrongly convicted in prison, and we're also looking at not only maybe that they know that they're not committing wrongful acts, police officers. A lot of them are just actually fabricating and compromising evidence when it comes to prisoners. I mean, the research that I have done, when the task force, the Detroit People Task Force, organized, our main issue was to have an independent crime lab from the police station.
Wait, stop. An independent crime lab,
right?
You said?
Yeah, separate from the police station. Okay. And this is something that's just not local. This is something that's national, all the way to the FBI crime lab. You have this corruption going on. So, you know, when you start speaking about here locally in Detroit, the Detroit People's Task Force has been out there from the beginning to the breaking of the crime lab to the point where we actually had a meeting with Kim Worthy at the city council, and we actually won that particular situation where we were supposed to be looking into the separation of the crime lab, and then the crime lab was closed. And not long after that, we did find other things that brought corruption to the crime lab, as a lot of rape cases and things that were found when the crime lab was supposed to be closed. And then to mention that on this local level as well here in the city of Detroit, we have a lot of convicted individuals that are walking out from several police officers, at least one in particular that I'm interested in, which is David Pouch, who was over the crime lab on many of these cases where people have been convicted. So they got work to do.
All right, we need to slow down on one statement that was made, because we want everybody to have the accurate information. It's not 1 in 4.
How many is it?
The national research over the last 30 years or so, and I'm not sure if we can go to the 1 in 4 even in Wayne County. But around the country, the average of genuinely potential wrongful convictions where the person in prison had nothing to do with the crime is somewhere between 1.5% and 4%. 5% on the high side. Now,
what are we going to do? How do we go about this? I mean, that's
1 in 4 would be 25%. We are nowhere near there. So please, but even with the low number, if you think even 1% of the 2.3 million people in prison in the United States are in there for crimes they didn't commit, that is a serious, painful number. It indicates 23,000 individuals are in there for something they didn't do, and if you're going to add 1% for each 23,000, you're in excess of 100,000 people when you're getting to 4 or 5%. So we want everybody, if they're going to quote numbers, we want them to quote the accurate number.
Well, I would say in the percentage then from now. Now, when we talk about these cold case crime lab here in the state, now I may be quoting this maybe somewhere on the level or maybe not. Is there 1,222 cases just here? Are you aware of that? Or in Detroit, in Michigan?
Cold cases. Is that Wayne County?
Yeah, how many?
That wouldn't surprise me.
Okay.
That would not surprise me at all.
So when we got the reaction from the police department, Chief Craig and Kim Worthy, their public accountability was that they would review these cases to the fullest. And so I went downtown, me and my group, a few of us, we went down to Kenworthy's office, and we were told that in 3 weeks that they would be opening up the unit to investigate the cases. They have received the grant money, but they do not have a director at this particular time.
How long ago was that?
About 3 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
I am not sure what it is they're actually trying to accomplish between the police department and Wayne County. I do know that I've had discussions with members of the Detroit Police Department. They have said publicly that they are working with the University of Michigan Innocence Clinic, and my challenge to them is that, okay, if you're going to listen to one, you should listen to as many credible sources as possible. All right, that's number one. For the police department, it has to do with police work, that is, opening up investigations. With the prosecutor's office, I think that's a whole different matter.
Yeah, they said they're not working together. They don't work together. That's what they told me.
And because the issue for the prosecutor's office is that Kim Worthy and her staff members are lawyers in a position to evaluate what could be claims of actual innocence and wrongful conviction. And when you say the word conviction, that means that the system has gone through an entire process to essentially get to an end game. The end game is a solution to the crime alleged, and they say to the public, with that conviction, we have found the culprit. Okay, well, there are many, many people standing in line. Ask the University of Michigan alone, and they will tell you that their files exceed 5,000 claims of actual innocence in the state of Michigan. Now, granted, that's not just Wayne County. There are many, many counties that have similar issues where police have essentially stepped across the line from merely investigating to assembling evidence that may not be true, accurate, and fair.
Evidence.
And so you notice that there are certain words that I don't necessarily
use. Yes, I
use.
noticed. That's why I said it.
I'm very careful.
I know. That's why I
not
said
to make specific allegations, mainly because there are reasons for the allegations in specific cases that turn up very serious, if not criminal, misconduct on the part of police investigators who do more than just step out of line.
Right. What percentage of the cases do you think are tainted or falsified? I don't want to say it.
It's very difficult to come to an accurate number, mainly because the research in this area is continuous. If you look at one body of study and work, we can go back to 1989.
Okay.
All right. Now, if we go back to 1989, what we're looking at is the beginning of the acceptance of DNA evidence in the criminal prosecution process.
Okay.
All right. Now, that's very important because DNA was accepted in science as early as 1982, which means that it took a few years for the criminal justice system to accept the science and to include the science. Now, the reason that's a good place to start is because a lot of the mistakes that sent people to prison for something they didn't do had to do with bad or junk science.
And we want to keep in mind that a lot of these cases are just not about DNA.
Correct.
You know, at one point when the when the Innocent Project got started, that's what their focus was, is that we need DNA. And now I'm so thankful that they're going beyond the DNA, that they're starting to look at the ballistics and things like that. But if you want to talk about corruption has been around, we can say, from the beginning of time. So, you know, there have been wrongly convictions and people put in jail for no particular reason from history. You know what I'm saying? So where we are right now in the community, as I'm speaking on a community level now, as a mother who has a son that I feel is wrongly convicted. And so where we're at now is that we're at the point to where we actually want some accountability. We can have that accountability professionally, or we can have that accountability at any rate that what they say, we're going to just go at it any way we have to at the community to get some answers. And this particular time, we're not going to just sit down and wait for them to give us answers. We're going to go and try to get the answers. So that's why I'm here today on behalf of a lot of the community, representing the community for individuals who have or feel that they have wrongly convicted loved ones in prison. We're having a rally this Saturday. Sisters Helping Sisters presenting this rally in collaboration with other community groups, and we have a host of speakers and attorneys that is going to be out. So if anyone is looking for any type of resources, or you have something you want to get off of your chest, you have someone that's been tucked away in the box by some corrupted individuals, you need to come on out to this rally we're going to be having at Palmer Park on Saturday the 21st from 2 to 6.
Okay. Is it out in the park or in a building or where?
It's in the park east of Woodward, right by the police department. You won't miss us. You won't miss
Police
us.
department is west
Off
of
of
Woodward.
the 12th precinct,
Yeah, okay.
off of Woodward.
Right by the 12th precinct.
Yeah,
This
on the
coming
Woodward side.
Saturday, which is the 21st of October.
Correct.
What time?
From 2 to 6.
2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And that's West 7 Mile Road.
Palmer Park.
Okay, Palmer Park. Are you familiar with the police commission?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I ran into Bill down there last week.
Oh, and the police commission. Okay, and you're aware that the police commission advocates for the community, over the department.
Well, that may be what they were organized or what they were appointed to do, but I really feel that the community advocates for themselves, because anytime you allow someone else to be responsible for you and your livelihood, you're most likely going to be let down. So my advice to community people, to people in the community and activists and loved ones, you have to stand up and demand. You got to get involved, just as I did. When my son was incarcerated, I got it and I started the Detroit People's Task Force. And we ain't going nowhere. And we took a break, but we're getting started again. And this time we're going to speak loud and be heard.
Okay. Well, it is the police. Oh, okay. There is one thing. The police commission is supposed to act on behalf of the community. And you do have to be concerned about the appointees on that commission, because they come from Mike Duggan, the mayor of Detroit.
And he gets to appoint too.
Yeah, yeah, 4 actually. Hello, you're on the air with Hood Research, and my guests this morning are Marilyn Jordan and Bill Proctor. Your name?
My name is Miss Thomas. I'm watching you on Comcast 91.
Oh, great. Thanks for calling.
You're welcome. And thanks for having your guest on. My question this morning is, there was a case, Marianne, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Diabo or Diabo.
Oh,
I'm not
yes.
sure. She passed away last Wednesday. And
What?
I think, yes, she passed away. And what I'm calling for is the case with her where she supposedly, and I don't know if it happened, if it was true, was to have shot at police because of something going on with her young daughter. And Kim Worthy, the case was dismissed on several occasions, but Miss Worthy kept bringing the case back.
I remember.
And I think it's a tragedy to have someone like Miss Worthy as a prosecutor, and to have Mr. Craig as a chief of police, and the big person is the mayor, Duggan. We need to get rid of all 3 of those people. And if one of your guests could speak on this case, or if you're familiar with it, I would appreciate it greatly. Thank you.
Yes, Diane Bukowski did email me about her passing, and there is an article that she has printed in The Voice of Detroit, and we are sorry for the passing of that falling sister. And you're so right. We really do have work to do in removing Miss Kim Worthy. I'm not going to be light about it. Our group, like I said, we have faced her on many occasions, and the voice of the community is that they are very dissatisfied with Miss Kim Worthy, the way that she's handling a lot of these cases, and I think she's got enough work in the next coming days and weeks and months to keep her busy. But she does have an election coming up, and we're sorry to hear about the passing of that soldier.
Right. Well, Gadalbo was a mother who did not want to give some chemical, I don't know, medications or something to her child, and that's where the prosecuting of her came in. But through the efforts of
Ron
there's another
Scott. Ron
judge,
Scott. Too.
it was Judge Thomas, Judge Deborah Thomas, came to the defense, her defense, and that's what helped
and
to,
the community
help her keep her child.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, where were we?
We were talking, and I'm glad you brought up the difference between DNA cases that may be prosecuted or DNA-based cases. Because she's exactly right in saying that those cases that involve DNA are really only 40% or less than the cases that actually end up criminally charged, and that the other 60 or more cases, 60%, have no DNA component, that it has everything to do with other kinds of physical evidence. And you're right, there are elements that end up in the crime lab, like how to analyze properly bullets that may have been fired in a crime. There are elements of bodily fluids that end up being analyzed. There are footprints, there are fabrics, there are a long list of things that can end up in a crime lab that are not necessarily DNA connected or evaluated, or that science doesn't necessarily come into play. So, and those cases, believe it or not, are actually more difficult than the DNA case, because you can't necessarily do a simple scientific comparison as to what it is you're looking at. In all those other cases, it has to do with what somebody might have said, testimony that could have been structured, people that may have been threatened with whatever shortcoming. Maybe they were involved in some level of crime themselves, and they get offered the way to step away from or have less time served on their own criminal charges to testify against someone who may turn out to be innocent. Now, I don't know about your son's case, but maybe it would be good if we heard some of the elements of that, because some of these cases, some of the actual innocence claims are relatively clear. Yes, there was a crime. Yes, someone may be deceased. Yes, that might have been a violent act. But the person, sometimes, who ends up getting prosecuted and sent to prison for that, is not the actual person responsible.
Exactly. And while we're on that subject as well, what a lot of the community may be having a problem attaining with these cases is, such as mine and my son, is that we have repeatedly submitted FOIAs to submit the evidence, the crime scene photos, the medical report, whatever is needed for evidence in a particular case to prove your case. A lot of the parents are having that problem trying to get that evidence, and why, I have no idea. I know with our particular case, when we went down there, it was we don't have it, or it's missing. And I thought that myself, I'm not a lawyer, but I thought myself that when you're missing evidence, at some point that kind of like alters the case a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So with our particular case with my son, Kelly Nobles, is that we are having the issue with the ballistics. At that particular time, he never did accept a guilty charge, because from the first cop that they offered him, which was 1 to 2 year gun charge, the next one was a 5-year, and then a 10-year gun charge, which he didn't accept anything, of course, and then he winded up with life without parole, because I guess that's the way that it's sentenced within the court system. But the main thing is that he presumes his innocence through the ballistics. And then he stood on that 100%, that those bullets were fabricated. And then once we got this new evidence to come up about this particular police officer, which we knew, which is why we went after the crime lab, is that, that there could be some fabrication going on, some compromising within the ballistics.
Wow. That's amazing that your son was offered only 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and now
Oh, my.
he's serving life?
Yeah,
Okay, so this was some sort of a dispute that turned into gunfire? Is that
right,
okay.
exactly.
Was there ever any evidence that your son fired a gun?
No,
Okay, now
You know-
that's the level of clarity that we always need to get to.
no, it
Right.
wasn't.
See,
But,
that's one of the keys.
The thing that sounds to me that the prosecutor says, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to keep going up.
That's standard. That's an operation that they use
What's
all
so-
the time.
Well, what's so standard about that?
It's standard.
That's like forcing a person to say, oh my God, now I could have only gotten 2 years. Now they're saying 5, but I didn't do it. So now I'm going to still say I'm not guilty. Okay, so if you don't do what we say, we're going to up it again, 10 years.
You would find that to
You
be
know?
very recreational in a lot of cases. As a matter of fact, some of the prisoners have been calling home telling me lately, I heard this just 3 days ago, that when they go before the parole board, if they don't admit to the crime, then it's possible that they will not get out. They're telling me that if they admit to the parole board that they done it and whatever, then they can get out.
Well, that's consistently true, and I have been through a couple of these parole board processes where either one or three or the entire parole board is listening to the arguments of, in some cases, actual innocence, but in many cases it is simply an argument that they have been good prisoners and they'd like to be able to go home. All right, well, we're right back to that same question. Okay, well, tell us how and why you did it. And if that prisoner has the unmitigated gall to say,
but I
well,
didn't do it.
but I didn't, and I have been saying that from the very beginning, and they may be wise enough, caring enough to say, well, you know, I'm really sorry for the victim in this case, but I also have to insist. And I am not the person responsible for any of this. And the parole board will grind their teeth, pound the table, and look across the table at you and say, well, you don't seem to be remorseful at all, so why don't you just serve all of your time?
Oh,
Yes.
And in some
God.
cases, they have served all of their time, and they get extensions based on the wonderfulness, the caring hearts of the parole board, to
Exactly.
say, why don't you take a little bit more punishment because we don't like your attitude.
Exactly.
Oh.
This is what they're reporting. And we're so grateful for other organizations and individuals of the community that are starting to rise up. We were at a meeting with Elena Harada, and what they're trying to do is establish a community commission board and for prisoners. And I think that may be something that's fairly new. The Citizen Review Board would be citizens of the community to oversee prison activities. I think that would be pretty nice. They haven't started it, but they're getting ready to.
Oh, wow. I have to pause for the cause. There is a announcement about an event that needs to be shared. My co-host has it over there. There's just so much going on in this community, and the biggest issue is like them against us, them with the laws and the process, and us who don't understand how the process goes. The BB,
Well,
do you have the information so that we can announce it?
Maybe I don't know if I should speak it to you and then you reiterate it.
Okay, all right. However,
Okay. It will be Tuesday, October 24th
Tuesday, October 24th,
at the Media Lab at 8200 West Outer
8200 West Outer
Drive.
Drive Media Lab. What's on
This is at Wayne County Community College.
WC3,
It's hosted by Sinai Grace Gill.
hosted by the Sinai Grace Gill.
It will be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's a workshop,
6 p.m. to 8 p.m. workshop.
and it's for community development.
Regarding community development.
And it's also Sinai Grace DMC is the main participant and sponsor.
Sinai Grace
Yes, is the main.
and DMC.
Yes, is the,
Oh, the sponsors of this community event.
yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, that's basically it. Designing our neighborhood's future.
That's interesting.
yes.
Designing our neighborhood's future. Okay. Well, we will be announcing it a few more times tomorrow for one. And we want people to know that they need to attend these meetings because there are groups that are interested in developing or redeveloping our communities. So you need to go in order to determine whether or not you are interested in participating, interested in what is happening to your community. You should be there so that you can give your input to the process.
A much needed cause.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. About 10 to let me know so we can announce it again. Thank you. Okay. I think that this commission, Marilyn Jordan, that you're speaking of, is a good idea because it brings people together so that they can, one, know that there are others just as concerned as they are.
Yes.
And there's strength in numbers. There's support within the numbers.
It is.
And then hopefully a learning experience so that they can work together and have persons such as Bill Proctor, who is concerned enough to participate within the community to bring some justice to the young people who are improperly charged in an out-serving time.
Well, it is definitely a cause that's much needed, and people are definitely needed because, as Bill stated, the numbers are astronomical. We can't begin to imagine. And this is not to take away anything from the victims. Our heart goes out to anyone that has lost a loved one through crime. You know, we're not immune to that. That was my son's best friend, and that's why he went to go help him. He was due to leave for his contract, something that he had really worked on most of his life, and he was due to leave and go to California in 2 days. And he had turned down Russell Simmons and Puff Daddy, and he was on his way. But he got a call that his friend had been beaten up, some senseless things. And we have a lot of senseless things going on in the community, but we have to work together. And,
But the other thing, Marilyn, is this. Family members or loved ones of victims should want the right person
yes,
who committed the crime, not just anybody thrown in jail to ease their conscience. If you are happy that just anybody gets convicted, and yet the perpetrator of the crime against your loved one he's still or she is still walking out on the street, that leaves them to continue committing more crimes.
Exactly.
So it would seem to me that family members want the right person caught, prosecuted, and incarcerated.
In one of the cases I've been working on now for 12 years, the man in prison is Ray Gray. He was 21 years of age. Young guy who apparently was quite an athlete, was a boxer, an amateur boxer that was about to turn pro. He was that good. He was also an artist, did marvelous paintings, was accepted at the time in an art school, and was very interested in his talents and developing him. And in addition to that, he actually was a hairdresser. He, in the basement of his parents' home, was actually doing hair for women, and had apparently an artistic flair with that kind of thing. Think about a young man with all of that talent essentially sent to prison for a murder. Now, I stopped there because he just made the mistake of having the wrong girlfriend who put together a little crew and went to rob a drug dealer. So 3 people in an apartment on the 4th floor, slipping into this apartment, scuffling with and then shooting to death the young guy who was just dealing drugs, and yes, they wanted to take his money. All right. You notice I said nothing about Ray, because Ray's parents, Ray's hairdressing customer, told the police and testified in court that that's where Ray was. He had nothing to do with this robbery murder, yet Ray is, as of next year, going to be in prison for 45 years.
Oh, God.
Oh, Lord.
For a murder where I have spoken to both the woman girlfriend co-conspirator and the person who killed the guy in the robbery, and they both say
He wasn't there.
Ray wasn't there. Now, granted, they're both not saying they were there. Of course, the woman says she was there because she was the insider who opened the door for the robbers.
Bill, is this something that the prosecutor does when you actually really know that this person is innocent? Like, we have a lady that's in our group. Her son has an affidavit from the FBI that says that he is innocent, and they're still holding him the same way that they done with the Simpsons.
Did you say the FBI?
Yes, she has a signed affidavit from them saying that her son is innocent.
From an agent of the FBI.
Right.
And his signature is on that
Yes.
affidavit. I want to know about that case.
Definitely.
I
Definitely.
want to know about that case. I mean, you have to excuse my getting wound up here, but because I live this stuff, and pounding the table about these kinds of cases is what I do. So.
Wow. Is somebody on the phone?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, you're on with Marilyn Jordan and Bill Proctor. Your name, please. Are you watching us? Hello. Next call. Go ahead. We don't. Okay. Oh God, 45 years. You know, the other thing that is kind of senseless to me and needs some clarification for the public is the number of years that people serve for whatever it is. You have one person who committed murder intentionally. They may get 20 years. Somebody else may get 12 years. Somebody else. I mean, what is it that determines it? Is it the hatred of the prosecutor's office or what?
It usually has to do with the crime. I mean, there's a complicated structure that goes into sentencing.
Okay.
A first-degree murder conviction, where the murder appears to be some sort of an intentional or criminal act, is usually a life in prison sentence, and it's locked into that.
Okay.
These other situations where less time is given could be some other lesser circumstance where some criminal activity may be underway, and the person who is responsible for a death may not have been the aggressor. I mean, it's horrifically complicated.
And sometimes it has something that could be privilege as well.
Right, but let me tell me about it. But let me tell you about this. This woman was a victim of domestic violence. She's a battered wife. And she just got to the point where she couldn't take it anymore. And her husband, they were in the bedroom, and he was beating her. And when she was knocked on the bed to the other side, there was a gun on the nightstand. She took it and shot him. Well, in the meantime, the prosecutor said the reason, and she was found guilty, by the way, the reason is they don't want battered wives to think that that's a way out, and they'll just start being vigilantes. I think that's the craziest thing I ever heard. I mean, the woman was in terrible shape, but anyway, that's one of the excuses they used.
It's I'm not going to walk down the road of excuses, but in the structure of a criminal prosecution, there are arguments of the actual threat that the person faces when deadly force is used.
Okay.
So this woman was unfortunately being beaten.
Oh, yes.
But the battering spouse apparently did not have a weapon other than his fists. And the woman essentially used her discretion and picked up the deadly force weapon, fired and killed him. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, it was his gun on the other side of the bed where
unfortunately, there probably were only two people involved in this scenario.
Yes.
There were likely no other witnesses, which left the prosecutor a clear path to argue that the woman's decision to fire was somehow intentional.
But other
Was it fair?
X-rays
Yeah,
and
was it fair and reasonable? That's an argument that we can have. Unfortunately, the process can walk down that road.
So, Theo, that case that I was speaking of, we do have that member here in the station now, and would it be a good idea to bring her on and let her talk about her case while Bill's here?
sure.
Okay, so
We'll take a 30-second break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
for the crime lab.
What's her name? Move it. Feedback. Hi, this is Theo Broughton,
And I am Thabiti Mpinga,
inviting you to join us each Monday at 9 a.m. for feedback.
a positive image production by Hood Research.
Encourage others to tune in each Monday on
Comcast Detroit, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, watch WHPR TV Network anywhere.
and take us along with you. Feedback. All right.
You're good.
And we're back. We now have with us LaSonia Dotson, a mother who is going to explain the circumstance that has happened with her child. And hold on. We have a call on the line first? Yes. Okay. Hello, you're on the air with Hood Research, LaSonia Dotson and Bill Proctor. Your name?
Thomas, 91 Comcast.
Okay.
Mr. Proctor, I can hardly hear you. Your mic's kind of low or something.
Well, I can get a little closer. Is that better?
Yeah, you can pull it closer.
Yes.
All right.
I wanted to ask, in a system where you have entities that can literally take control of your life, that there has to be some cynicism, some deceitfulness, some agendas, some vindictiveness, and it's hard to determine who is responsible for that. As citizens, what do you think we should do to make sure that we are free from being vulnerable and like that?
Well,
That's my question, and I'd like to hear the young lady's story. I hope it's not along these lines, but if so, I'm really sorry for your lot, and I hope things get better.
All right, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
I have an answer for that, but Ms. Dotson's story may take a few minutes, so why don't we get to that?
Okay, well, don't forget your place.
I won't.
Good morning. My son name is Darrell Ewing. He is locked up for a crime he did not commit. At that time, we were at a funeral. During the trial, I guess until you go through something, you never know the legal system. I had never been through anything, and as we were in court, stuff just started unrolling. The FBI came in with sealed documents stating that they had the young man in the Macomb County Jail who did it, and he was over there bragging about it. They had took people from the prison through a federal grand jury and found them to be telling the truth. That's the reason why they brought the information to the courtroom. The courtroom, as it was going on, they went out to go and talk to the young man. Then the next thing we know, it was like the lawyer wasn't letting him talk or whatever. So now he's written an affidavit stating exactly what was brought out in the courtroom. Also, a young lady was in the vehicle at the time. She stated, she called in, she spoke with a Mr. William Rice, and also homicide, Otis Culpepper, spoke with her, came back to the courtroom. The jury cannot be in at this time. So they're talking to the judge and told her that we met with Adrian Jackson last night, and she told us that indeed Darrell Ewing or Derico was not there, and that it was William Beal and Tyree Washington, the exact same man who has written the affidavit. We've been 8 years going through this now, 8 years, and they knew this. I mean, from jump. This was during the trial. Before the trial even got started, the FBI came in. They knew all of this stuff. It kept unrolling with stuff that he wasn't there, that they didn't do it, and the young man was talking about it, and we still convicted. And
Okay,
8
tell
years
us,
down the line.
what is it that was supposed to have happened or did happen?
Well,
8
it was
years
a
ago?
drive-by shooting. The
Okay.
young Van Dyke and Harper, the
Okay.
young lady that was in the vehicle was talking to one of the guys that was in the van that got shot. Her son's father was in jail with this Tyree Washington before. They had got released. When they came home, they got into an argument or was actually into it over this young lady. They see them at the corner. The young man stated that he got out. He actually just did a video phone interview with Mr. Scott Lewis also and told him everything that happened. I mean, he completely went from beginning to end. But my son is still sitting here 8 years later because you have to go through the system, and then it has to go to this court, and you have to file a habeas corpus and this and that. It's just so much. It seemed like this should have been over with. I mean, my lawyer, I have Byron Pitts. He went in and spoken with the young man when he was in the Wayne County Jail. The young man told him everything. They have not brought him to trial. There's certain stuff that if they don't file the proper motions and this and that, your lawyers,
and on
if
time.
you don't know that, you can get stuck because your lawyer don't file.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with us.
If I'm not mistaken, the federal coming to the court, wasn't the trial underway?
Yeah.
And didn't the agents try to intervene
They
by
tried to
essentially
intervene.
saying to this judge, I'm sorry, Judge, this process is walking down the wrong road.
Yeah.
We have affidavits indicating the real person responsible.
Exactly.
You would think that judge, who unfortunately is now deceased.
Exactly. She had an aneurysm. Carol Youngblood.
Yes. So Carol Youngblood, this process is underway. This is one of the more egregious elements of what happens in these cases. You have somebody with the power to essentially intervene to say, wait a minute, I don't know if the agents would have been allowed to take the stand, but maybe that's too much to ask. But if you have someone in the system, in the club, I call it, coming in to say, wait a minute, we're not walking down the right road here, somebody should be saying, okay, let's stop until we can get it right. That didn't happen in this case. And it's really ridiculous to know that somebody in power to essentially put the process on hold. And she
then to
didn't.
even top it off, when the young lady came forward and called them and told them she was ready to talk, she was in the vehicle. There's not nobody who was standing on the sidewalk. She was in the vehicle. She told them that. They came back to court. I just knew it was going to be over. I'm like, oh, God, finally it's coming apart. She told them she was in the vehicle, that it was her baby daddy and this young man who's confessed. And he's confessed to being the shooter. He's not pointing somebody else out. He's confessed to being the shooter. And we're still here.
And what was ridiculous about this prosecution was the police had this whole scenario about this being some sort of a drug turf thing, and it came down to the simplicity of this was an issue between people over friendship, dating, baby mama, etc., etc. It had nothing to do with drugs, as the police presented at trial. And to have Carol Youngblood, and I wish she was here to defend herself, to be sitting on the bench and to hear all of this. Well, here's some of, because I think she essentially stopped the feds from bringing forward the new information because...
Well, she actually, they came in, but because they were in the middle of a federal investigation, it was certain stuff that they couldn't talk about. And they tried to ask them stuff that they kept saying, well, we're not at liberty to disclose that right now because of their case that they had going on.
Well, does the chief judge have any power in all of this? Is he supposed to be over all of the courtrooms?
We're not really sure where it would have been appropriate for a chief judge's intervention if that was the case. You see, these kinds of things, because of the way the system is structured, essentially sometimes doesn't allow for common sense. That's exactly what was going on here. It didn't allow for common sense.
And it's such a hard process. So I think something need to be put in place so this never happens. Because if you got to wait 20 years and 40 years and things that I'm hearing, this is ridiculous. I mean, that's their whole life gone.
Right. Now, what about the Judicial Tenure Commission? Do they have any power?
Well, yes. And in this case, there may have been a complaint against Youngblood, but Youngblood is dead. So that would have been the place.
So they can't review what is in the court records to know that she did wrong, even though she's dead. She did wrong.
Your associate needs to say just 1 minute left. So please do what you need to do.
Oh, wow. There's so much of this information that we have not gotten out that we need to get out. Is there a meeting that you have that people should come to, Bill?
Well, I have a website that provides information on
Okay.
wrongful convictions.
Okay, and the website is?
It's seekingjusticeBP.com. SeekingJusticeBP, and then it sounds like my initials, but not.
Bill Proctor.
SeekingJusticeBP.com is the website.
Okay.
And if you, I'm also a licensed private investigator. I work cases of wrongful conviction. You can find me at BillProctorAndAssociates.com.
Oh, okay, all right. And,
And we do have that wrongful conviction rally coming up. I don't know whether
okay,
they spoke of
give
that.
it again, the time is going, go ahead.
Okay, the wrongful conviction rally is going to be October 21st from 2 to 6 at Palmer Park, right near the Woodward exit, right off of Woodward.
Oh, it's near the 12th precinct.
Right,
Okay, that is October the 21st.
October 21st.
That's a
which is
Saturday.
Yes.
Saturday, October 21st, and the time?
2 to 6 p.m.
2 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Going to be a lot of speakers, got a lot of good people on, and just everybody coming out and telling their story and
Okay.
trying to get together enough.
All right. Wrongful conviction rally. And I want to let you know that it's not necessary for you to know everything. What is necessary is for you to know how to find what you need when you need it. And we at Hood Research seek out as much information as we can to help us all make better informed decisions. And you can always go to hoodresearch.org. Thank you so much for tuning in. And now stay tuned for Marley B.